Chapter 2. The Coming of KU SUI. Straight through the vast cold reaches that stretched between one mighty planet and another, the Scorpion arrowed, Carse and Friday standing watch and watch, Seiko always on duty with the latter. Behind, Saturn's rings melted smaller, and ahead, a dusky speck grew against the vault of space until the red belts and one great seething crimson spot that marked it as Jupiter stood out plainly. By degrees, then, the ship's course was altered as Carse checked his calculations and made minor corrections in speed and direction. So they neared the rendezvous, and a puzzled furrow grew on Friday's brow. What was bothering his master? Instead of becoming more impassive and coldly emotionless as the distance shortened, he showed distinct signs of worry. This might be natural in most men, but it was unusual in the HAWK. Often the Negro found him abstractedly smoothing his bangs of hair, pacing the length of the control cabin, glancing, plainly worried, at the visi-screen. What special thing was wrong? Friday wondered again and again, and then in a flash he knew. "Why, how we going to see Dr. KU?" he burst out. "Didn't that Judd say something?" The HAWK nodded. "That's just the problem, Eclipse. For you'll remember, Judd said that KU SUI comes out of darkness, out of empty space. That might mean invisibility, or the fourth dimension, and God help us if he solved the problem of dimensional traveling. I don't know, but it's something I can't well prepare against." He fell to musing again, utterly lost in thought. A day and a half later found Friday genuinely worried, an unusual state for the always cheerful Black. The laugh wrinkles of his face were retwisted into lines of anxiety, which gave his face a most solemn and lugubrious expression. From time to time, he grasped the butt of his ray gun with a grip that would have pulped an orange. Occasionally his rolling brown eyes sought the gray ones of the HAWK, only to return as by a magnet to the visi-screen, whose 5 adjoining squares mirrored the whole sweep of space around them. Jupiter now filled one side of the forward observation window. It was a vast, red-belted disk, an eye-thrilling spectacle at their distance, roughly 1,000,000 miles. Against it were poised 2 small pale globes, the larger of which was Satellite 3. Several hours before, when they had been closer to the satellite, Carse had scrutinized it through the electelscope. Electelscope. Scrutinized it through the electelscope and made out above its surface a silver dot, which was a spaceship. It was bound inward toward... I could say it without laughing. It was bound inward toward Port-au-Porno, and might well have been one of KU SUI's. But the Scorpion, slowing down for her rendezvous, had attracted no attention and had passed undisturbed. Now she hung motionless, that is, motionless with respect to the sun. Only the whisper of the air-renewing machinery disturbed the tension in her control cabin, where the 3 men stood waiting, glancing back and forth from the visi-screen to the Earth clock and its calendar attachment. The date the clock showed was 24 January, the time 10:21 p.m. Dr. KU SUI was 1 minute late. Seiko, the captive, was sullen and restless, and made furtive glances at the HAWK, who stood detached, arms hanging carelessly at his sides, gray eyes half closed, giving in his attitude no hint of the strain the others were feeling. But his attitude of being relaxed and off his guard was deceptive, as Seiko found out. Suddenly, his left hand seemed to disappear. There was a hiss, an arrowing streak of spitting orange light, and Seiko was gaping foolishly at the arm he had stealthily raised to one of the radio switches. A smoking sear had appeared as if by magic across it. HAWK CARSE sheathed his gun. "I would advise you to try no more obvious tricks," he said coldly. "Cutting in our microphone is too simple a way to give warning to Dr. KU SUI. Move away from there, and don't forget your lines when Dr. KU calls. You will never act a part before a more critical and deadly audience." Seiko mumbled something and rubbed his arm. A pitying smile came to Friday's face as he comprehended what had happened. "You damned fool," he said. It was 10:22 p.m. Still in the visi-screen, no other ship. Nothing but the giant planet, the smaller satellites poised against it, and the deep, star-spangled curtain of black space all around. They had carefully followed the instructions in the log. They were at the exact place noted there, checked and double-checked. The radio receiver was tuned to the wavelength given in the log. But of KU SUI, nothing. And yet, in a way, he was with them. His enigmatic personality, his seldom-seen figure was very present in their minds, and with it were overtones of all the diabolic cunning and suave, ironic cruelty that men always associated with him. "He comes out of darkness, out of empty space." Friday licked his lips. He was not built for mental strain. His lips kept drying and his tongue was as leather. A little sputtering sound tingled the nerves of the three waiting men, and as one, their eyes went to the radio loudspeaker. A contact question was being asked in the usual way. "Are you there, Judd? Are you there, Judd? Are you there, Judd?" Paid by the word again. The voice was not that of KU SUI. It was a dead voice, toneless, emotionless, mechanical. "Are you there, Judd?" It went on over and over. "The mic switch, Friday," the Hawk said, and then was at Seiko's side, his ray gun transfixing the man with its threatening angle. It was probably an acute angle. "Play your part well," was the whisper from his lips. The switch went over with a click. Trembling, Seiko faced the microphone. "This is Seiko," he said. "Seiko?" the dead voice asked. "I want Judd. Where is Judd?" "Judd is dead. The trap failed, and there was a fight on Iapetus. Judd was killed by Carse, and most of the others. Only 2 of us are left, but we have Carse and the Negro prisoners alive. What are your instructions?" I'm trying not to go too far into horrible parody. I really am. A half-minute went by, and the 3 men hardly breathed. "How do we know you are Seiko?" said the voice at last. "Give the recognition." "The insignia of Dr. KU SUI?" "Yes, it is." Carse's ray gun prodded the stomach of the sweating Seiko. "An asteroid," he said hastily, "in the center of a circle of the 10 planets." The unseen speaker was quiet. Evidently he was conferring with someone else, probably KU SUI. "All right," his toneless voice came back at last. "You will remain motionless in your present position, keeping your radio receiver open for further instructions. We are approaching, and will be with you in 30 minutes. Carse motioned to Friday to switch off the mic. Seiko sank limply into a chair, soaked with perspiration. Now we must wait again, the Hawk murmured, crossing his arms and scanning the visi-screen. They had heard from KU SUI, but that had not answered the old tormenting question of how he would come. It was more puzzling than ever. The visi-screen showed nothing, and it should have shown the Eurasian's decelerating ship even at twice 30 minutes' time away. They looked upon the same vista of Jupiter and his satellites, framed in eternal blackness. There was no characteristic steely dot of an approaching ship to give Carse the enemy's position and enable him to shape the plan of reception definitely. 20 minutes went by. The strain the Hawk was under showed only in his pulling at the bangs of flaxen hair that covered his forehead as far as the eyebrows. He had, from Judd's words, expected a mystery in KU SUI's approach. There was nothing to do but wait. He had made what few plans and preparations he could in advance. Friday broke the tense silence in the control cabin. "He's got to be somewhere," he exploded. "It is unnatural for the screen not to show nothing. Isn't there something we can do?" The Hawk was surprisingly patient. "I'm afraid not," he said. "It's invisibility he's using, or else the fourth dimension, as Judd said. But we've got one good chance. He'll send more instructions by radio, and surely after that his ship will appear." A new voice, bland and unctuous, spoke in the control cabin from behind the three men. "Not necessarily, my honored friend Carse," it said. "You will observe there is no need for a ship to appear." KU SUI had come.